Hi, I'm Rich Wagner, CEO and founder here at Prevedere. And at Prevedere, we help companies forecast and plan more accurately and more timely with external data and predictive analytics. So a little background about what we do really came from the need that I saw at that Fortune 500, where we were planning and forecasting using internal historical data and really assumptions from maybe the sales team or the business team. And our CFO simply asked me one day to help him identify external leading indicators to incorporate into our forecast and planning process. We started the company back in 2012, built the application. It's cloud-based, easy to integrate with any existing forecast and planning tools. And as I saw the kind of market evolve toward what we do, it's now called intelligent forecasting, as we work with lots of other consulting firms, technology vendors. That intelligent forecasting has become the term for incorporating that external signal, but also leveraging things like predictive analytics in the forecast process. So it's really a method.
So you started after the last financial meltdown, right? The financial crisis, and you're now coming out of another big crisis. So it'd be interesting to have you contrast how what differences you saw.
Yeah, the 2008 global recession was an event that you could see coming if you looked at the right external signals. But lots of companies like our own really didn't react until the markets took a large downturn. And then by the time that we actually started implementing our cost-cutting measures, we were actually in recovery mode, like many companies. So lots of companies react to what's happening today when there were signals that were unprecedented. They were happening early in 2008 that companies could have seen and prepared in advance. Things like consumer sentiment, consumer spending, economic conditions all over the globe, including in China, were all signaling a downturn in an unprecedented manner. And what we've built and strive to build is something that can watch for those signals and inform companies not only of demand for their products and services, but market and industry changes, right? We can see upturns and downturns coming by leveraging leading signals. And that's really the components in intelligent forecasting. It's leveraging external data that could be a signal that your business is about to change, and then applying artificial intelligence to build lots of predictive models that give us confidence that we can incorporate those signals and provide a more accurate picture of the future. Okay. The most recent downturn really was different, right? In 2008, we saw every industry decline all at once. What was different about this downturn is there are actually some industries that really thrived in the global pandemic, some that didn't. There was major consumer behavior changes in the way that we shop. There was government intervention in whether we could leave our house or not to do the things that we like to do. So what's happened in this downturn, it's not just flat across industry, downturn, and everybody knows they're going to be down at X percentage, and then we're all going to come out of it in 2009, 10, and beyond for several years. In this really event, what we've seen is that different companies react differently. We may have a retailer that's essential business that really skyrocketed and people came and pantry loaded. We may have the services industry go into a decline for multiple years in advance. We have some countries that shut down, some that don't. So there's a big difference, I think, in this downturn and the last, that external signals are more volatile, more varied than they were even in a global recession. Right. And you could see that with CFOs and their outreach, to us, and then some surveys that companies have done like Accenture and Workday that said really the need for external data is heightened for all CFOs, and all agree that real-time data is important in decision-making. Yet only 16% had access to it in any kind of systematic and repeatable way. And that's really what we've built, is a solution to help, especially the Office of Finance, but also supply chain and category and brand managers or any function that has to forecast, to leverage predictive modeling and scenario planning to be able to identify and anticipate external risk more accurately and more timely. So that's really our solution, is a real-time insights engine that uses both external data and predictive models that you can incorporate in your decision-making process, right? We all have a forecast. We have a forecast based on past trends and past sales, what our sales team says, what our business leaders hope to have happen. What if we could also incorporate external signals into that and build a consensus or a more holistic forecast? More importantly, what if your competitors have it and you don't, right? And that's what we're seeing. We work with large Fortune 500 companies, the largest in the world in manufacturing, retail, CPG, logistics, life sciences, and they're starting to transform the way they forecast and plan. And it's really these components. Data is extremely important. More available than ever before. More available doesn't mean it's easier to understand what things to look at. So we also need to marry that with technology, machine learning, AI, that can identify leading indicators specific to your business, your products, your categories, and how they're going to perform in the future, whether it's a week out, a month out, a year, 2 years, 3 years. These leading signals can give us more confidence and accuracy, but only if we can uncover the right signals and only if we can build the right predictive models. And today we do that through really AI engines that can do the routine and mundane testing and scoring and ranking much faster than any human can. And that's something that our products evolved in probably the last 3 years, is that we now leverage an AI-based engine to help make our internal services team more effective and our customers' data science and analytics teams more effective. And then being cloud-based, it's easy for us to integrate. An integration for us could be into an ERP system or a financial model like Workday and Adaptive Insights. It could also be presenting these new insights into a business intelligence layer like Tableau or Power BI, or it could be standalone reports that are created and incorporated into the forecast and planning process. So hopefully that's given you a background of what we do. The one thing about more data, as I mentioned, it's not always makes it easier. Sometimes that's a lot of noise. Now you've got millions of signals you need to look at all day and every day that are changing very frequently. And then how do we go from those millions of data sets down to the top maybe 10, 20 things specific to our business? And that's through machine learning. And then the AI piece comes in to build highly accurate models, not just one model or two, but many models that we can score and rank and update with an AI engine.
So what would you say is, if you look at your customer base, is it point of sale data? Is it, inventory data? Or is it manufacturing IoT data? How would you classify the data you're getting?
Yeah, for retail and CPG, it's a lot of point of sale data, certainly. For manufacturing, you're going to see volume and quantity of products and categories that they sell in the different markets. For the Office of Finance, it's also financial revenue by major business region, major division. It could be in retail also by channel. So not just POS data, but online versus in-store. Could be convenience stores versus big box. So it depends on the industry. But certainly the point of sale,
but it's
inventory data.
Still not at the customer sentiment or IoT, moves within a plant. Not at that level of detail, right? It's a level of.
You're right.
Okay.
Think about things that keep a CEO and CFO up at night or a business leader. Yep. It's those major areas of your business. That's where we start. Okay. And then we can scale out and get more granular out into the demand forecasting or shop floor. But first, let's make sure you understand where major business, major products and categories are heading.
Okay.
As I mentioned, the AI piece, that is something that we just couldn't do by hand. But we've had the luxury of working with over 100 leading companies across industries. And we've been able to score and rank kind of human performance versus our engine. And what we've seen that we can improve the accuracy and stability of predictive models with AI significantly. So maybe if we're 10, 15% off for a product or category, well, what if we could cut that almost in half? And what does that mean to a multi-billion-dollar company? Well, a lot of times that's millions to the bottom line, right? Reducing excess inventory, reducing excess shipping, over manufacturing, incorrect pricing, overstaffing, understaffing. All these things can improve with a more accurate forecast. And that's really what we've done is we've taken something that's been around for a long time and been known to be the most accurate way to forecast. So Harvard Business Review, Institute of Business Forecasting continually measure forecast accuracy across companies, across categories and forecast horizons. And we've known for decades that econometric modeling that takes into account historical demand plus external factors is more accurate, but it was very labor intensive. You would have to have economists and data scientists do this by hand. That's where the application that we've built really makes that affordable and effective and timely, right? We can harness all that data that we've already collected. We can apply machine learning and build econometric models that not only are more accurate, but also more transparent. We can explain, well, how much does a change in consumer sentiment actually mean to demand changes? How much is an increase in maybe SNAP benefits going to drive category change? It could also be, other economic signals that are more demand-based or producer price-based. When we talk about supply chain and cost and things like that, we can bring those in, but we can quantify and explain that to the business versus really a black box approach. So for us, we talk about us being kind of the anti-robot because we found that CEOs, CFOs, business leaders are really kind of worried or skeptical of just a machine giving you an answer without having the explainability that maybe a business leader or an industry expert would. So this econometric modeling is really a combination, very statistical rigor or a large amount of it, data intensive, but very transparent on what's driving your business and what are the factors that you should be paying attention to as a leader. Use cases for Workday customers, twofold, right? Workday's big on human capital management, where you're trying to forecast maybe wages in certain markets for different staff that are specific to you, or regions to where you might want to place call centers or contact centers. Well, that requires some predictive capability. The other side, and where we've started the organization, was around the office of finance, financial forecasting, the CFO, the CEO, investor relations. We have a lot of our customers where the executives will really look at our models and ask for some of our team to explain some of those external factors that we see that are creating headwinds and tailwinds in their business. So think of us as an army of economists in a box, right? And what if we could put that right into your ERP system or right into your financial planning system? Well, that's all possible today with both data and technology. So that's a lot of what we do. The big benefits, of course, one, what if we could find markets that were growing that you didn't know about, right? Those markets for your products and services that they were going to grow by themselves without a big effort or cost to go into those markets. We can also use it to optimize inventory and to optimize working capital decisions. Do we put a plant here? Do we stay in this market? Improving efficiency. Well, hunting and gathering external data is really time consuming and done in almost every company has groups of analysts that are trying to do it. What if you had that and you could update it every day without that human person going and looking for next quarter's GDP and then wondering if it's real or nominal and what is the same as what you used the last time to benchmark your business. And then ultimately, it's also to identify upcoming headwinds and reduce risk. We have an engine we call Aaron, External Real-Time Insights, that has a tool called Aaron Protect that constantly watches for deviations in your forecast in the models that we create versus your internal plan. So you may have a forecast for 10% growth in a major division, major business region. And what if our engine could tell you that all of a sudden maybe there's not the market opportunity for it, that we're actually seeing maybe half that or negative in that next forecast horizon? Then you can do something about it, right? So you could have that signal and then you could start to make some decisions that may be able to mitigate that downturn by going into other markets or reducing costs or your footprint, all those kind of things. So hopefully that gives you an idea.
Right.
Now the benefits
in the
sure.
market, who would you say what are you closest to? Are you like Hyperion? Are you like a adaptive? So, what do people, who do you run into when people are looking at options?
So for the comparison of those two, Hyperion, Adaptive, the Anaplan's, the SAP, well, we don't build, general ledger systems or financial models. We make them smarter. So for us, they're actually something that we tie into to bring in this external data and predictive modeling. Now, from a competitive standpoint, what we've seen is companies may try and hire data scientists to try and build this, which is fairly, large effort, difficult to do, and rarely successful. Or they may hire consulting firms to try and do this at a point in time. Maybe they've got a big initiative and they want to see what's the outlook for our specific business unit for the next 6-12 months with some expert help. But then, as we know, the world's changing faster than ever before. That's going to need to be updated probably by the time they get their analysis done. So for us, we complement the financial planning tools as a new add-in that's easy to integrate and easy to add value to those tools. But what we've seen from a competitive landscape is really, it used to be a manual consulting effort or an attempt internally to try to build this when it's maybe not your core competency.
Okay.
So benefits, we see time to value and solving really immediate needs about understanding what drives your business. Competitive advantage is where you could actually get a forecast more accurate than ever before, maybe more accurate than your competitors, as well as identify market opportunity in advance, so that really you can see those expansion revenue opportunities ahead of competitors. And as I see it evolve from a technology standpoint, moving from just internal to data no matter where it lives, inside or outside your four walls, and moving from reactive and looking backward to predictive and proactive is really where all good companies are going, right? All CEOs and CFOs that are going to be leaders in their industry and those companies, they can't ignore these external factors anymore. And we've seen that the world's changing faster and with more volatility than ever before. And I don't believe anybody believes it'll get easier. So those companies that actually incorporate those external signals and leverage today's technology are going to have a major competitive advantage. And I think it'll be rare in 1 to 2 years to hear of a company that doesn't have a system to collect these external factors and to use them to build predictive models. I think it'll be something that you just can't survive in a fast-paced global economy.
Rich, I was talking to a supply chain vendor last week, and I asked him, I said, are you seeing some of the more general purpose, the Anaplans and so on, come into your space? And he said, Vinnie, our space is so different that it's the execution guys that are trying to get into planning, but not some of the general purpose guys. So my question is more, are we ending up with a whole bunch of fragmented planning tools, supply chain, OP&S, financial? What do you see? Is that the risk?
Yeah, so we've always built siloed forecast in enterprise companies, right? We've never been on the same page. So what I see is really this idea and this concept of integrated business planning is growing. And we're seeing companies start to do that where they do want kind of one version of the truth. Now, it's difficult to do because they all look at their business differently. Supply chain is going to look at SKUs, right? And categories and ship to locations, distribution centers. Finance is going to look at financial revenue, right? By business unit and divisions and regions. The sales team's got their own categories. At the same time, I think you could start modeling at the top. What drives the core of our business? And you can actually use that as a foundation as you build out the integrated business planning, right? You can actually share that information up front. So our customers have really adopted an approach where they use these predictive models for major categories, major business units as a starting point. They share that with their business leaders, supply chain, finance, sales, marketing, and say, here's what the market's telling us. Now we want you to really talk about what you think is going to happen in your area and why, but you're armed with more information. You're armed with a decline in consumer spending or consumer behavior to go into big box stores, so that it's a baseline forecast as a starting point across functions. The other way we see people using this is in FP&A as guardrails to their plan throughout the year. So they may have the baseline models certainly, or maybe the business provided them the baseline forecast or supply chain has, then they can compare that to what these external models are saying and really identify any risk that we're saying two different things. Like supply chain saying growth for a category, the market's really telling us that we're going to be down in that region. Then they can use that to open a discussion with the business and come to the right consensus forecast. Now, supply chain could be accurate. They may have some constraints. They may have some, both the demand side and supply side, and say, okay, I get the market's there, but maybe we don't have enough resources to meet that demand. And then here's what we can agree on as our forecast. But I don't think we're creating any new silos, that weren't there. They've always been there. But what we're doing is getting more fact-based information they can all discuss and build that consensus forecast with. So how we work with those tools is, one thing I wanted to do when we built it, we want to make this a very low barrier of entry, very easy to connect. So we're a very open API. You can consume not only the predictive models that are built in Prevedere, but also the data. If you wanted to say, okay, I want all 4 million signals that you collect in my repository because I may need those at some point, that's fine. We can do that with an open API and through business connectors, like OneCloud is one of them, MuleSoft is another. We're really agnostic into the tool set, or just write it into the Workday module where we can call out the API that we've built. Or we could be a standalone forecast as well, right, as a cloud-based application. But where we see the big win is when you don't have to leave your planning tool as a CFO, a VP of finance, a business leader, that if you're planning in Workday today, you have this insight right inside that application as well. So it becomes seamless and not another login that you're going to forget, and have to take a business leader out to. It should be integrated right into the planning tools, whether it's supply chain in the supply chain module, finance, category and brand managers may look at it for, market mix models and what we call CAGRs or multiple year outlook. And who we work with is really, I mentioned, the largest companies in the world, a lot of them across industries, but we've purposely targeted large companies that have a global reach because they need more data, and they also typically will have more products and product lines. So for us, it's a matter of really enabling those large companies to see things across countries, across channels, but also this applies to smaller companies. Some of the smallest that we've done have been around 50 million in revenue. That may be, just guitar stores in certain areas. They also are driven by external factors. So we think there's a big opportunity to empower all Workday.
Tractor Supply is a good example, right? The demographic move of the country is really, well, that's a fascinating story.
Yeah, they talk about us in a couple interviews that it's really working with the leadership team on things like, are people really moving out to the country? And if they are out there, are their habits changing to where, maybe they're buying chickens when they didn't used to, and they're selling lots of chicken coops. And then, what happens as, we all hope that things open back up and the service sector starts to come back? Can they count on that growth that they've seen, or will they see that come back down to maybe pre-pandemic levels? That's the kind of signals that they're looking for. Is this a sustained change in behavior, change in geographic location where people live, that's going to be able to continue the growth rate that they've seen, over the past couple of years? But yeah, very advanced leadership team. Hal Lawton is, very good at shifting the store's behavior to meet their customer demands. And they've got some great stories about going digital and delivery and pickup, and being able to be very nimble to move toward that, but also to identify these trends that, have really bolstered their sales of specific products that is something that I think is going to provide them lasting value.
I live in Tampa, Florida, and the closest tractor supply probably was 70, 80 miles away.
Yeah,
Now there's one within 5 miles of us, so they've been both the demographics and, like you say, the product additions, poultry and so on, which you go, wow. But they clearly are able to see, thanks to you and other tools, they're able to see things that others don't see.
yeah, they've been doing really well. And it is those leaders that are embracing this data and any technology that can provide them with more accurate predictions. I think that'll be successful, like Tractor Supply. Well, Vinnie, anything else I could share about Prevedere and what we do?
This is fantastic. Thank you for the overview.